I decided to have this presentation public because I find that the research that is done, all the time that you spend doing research, um, in the presentation itself, the document that we write and that is in the library of our school, it gets kind of left there in the library and no one really kind of reads it. Um, and I want to present on my capstone because it's very important for me, but also because I find that having my academic background in a resume is very limiting. And so I think this is my own way of showing what I studied, um, what I focused my time and energy on, a whole year of my life on. And because the topic is very, very important for me and is very important for a lot of people that are interested in gender issues, specifically women and girls issues relating to menstruation. And so this capstone presentation that I'm about to share with you all talks about assessing the monitoring and evaluation capacity for a menstrual education organization. So there's kind of two topics that I'll be touching on. One is the M&E or monitoring and evaluation aspect, and the other is the menstrual health aspect. So yeah, I hope I can do this quicker than my original presentation for my capstone seminar, just because for a population, the general population, you want to make things a little quicker while still conveying the important information. So in this presentation, I'm going to go through introductions, menstrual health and hygiene management information, monitoring, evaluation, and learning information, the subject of my capstone, which is an organization with the pseudonym Tenara, the capstone question that I chose, the literature. I won't be talking about all the literature because there is a lot that I went through. Um, and the methodology, the tools that I used to conduct my project, the products that came out of the tools, the conclusions that I drew, the recommendations that I made, and just some personal takeaways. So here's some important acronyms. I'll try to move. So we have CBOs, community-based organizations. We have DANE or Departamento Administrativo Nacional de Estadística or National Administrative Department of Statistics. Kind of like the census. ENDS, which is Encuesta Nacional de Demografía y Salud, National Survey of Demographics and Health, so kind of like a health census. Menstrual health and hygiene management, menstrual health management. Here we're using monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, MEAL. But a lot of people also use MEL, which is monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And a lot of people also use M&E, so monitoring and evaluation. So different people use different things, but it's not all the same, but they're all kind of like they're like siblings, these terms, MEAL, MEL, and M&E. Then we have MSC, most significant change. We have NGO, that's one that's pretty common, non-governmental organizations. Theory of change. UNICEF, which is also very common, UNFPA, which is not as common, but it's the United Nations Population Fund. One note to have here is for MHHM. So let me move to this side. MHHM and MHM, they are kind of interchangeable, and I will touch on this now because I'll forget, but in some of the literature, I found that there was conversations about different concepts that mean the same thing but are written differently. And this is one really great example. So there might be like a slight change in the definition by some people, and they might think these concepts MHHM and MHM are different, and then there's other people that treat them the same. And there's a stated issue that when trying to do any type of research regarding menstrual health and hygiene management or menstrual health management, because these two concepts are used interchangeably by some and are more exclusively used by others, then there becomes this problem where you cannot take different reports from different organizations in different countries, and you cannot compare them because the concepts, you don't know how they're being used, and then it becomes kind of muddy. It's hard to compare. So I'll go into this a little bit more, but I wanted to kind of point it out here. So let's see here. So who and why? So why did I choose this topic? It's very annoying. I not change myself. Oh, oh, oh. Okay. So the who and why. So this is gonna explain why I chose this topic. So kind of to give a background that might not be as relevant for the general public, I chose this topic because it was first a course, it was first part of my meal course, monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. And because I really liked um, looking at the details and figuring out the data and how then to use that to benefit the organization, hopefully by giving some type of feedback or being able to tell the story more clearly of what they're doing. I really love this class because of that, and I actually really excelled. I felt like I was really excelling in the concepts and what was asked of me. So I wanted to kind of use that momentum and keep going and focus that as my capstone. I wanted to explore the male application and the importance. And so I chose the organization because I had a personal connection with the founder of the organization. We had been friends and I had kept in contact. I also really like women and girls' rights. I think they are very important and not talked about enough. Um, and I think menstrual education is very important too, especially when you start to talk about girls that maybe are, I mean, all girls, but in every situation of a girl in a woman's life, once a month, they will have to deal with and um, experience menstruation. And there are a multitude of cultural impacts, logistical impacts, and impacts on the girls and women's lives. So I just think it's such an important topic and it's not talked about enough. Um, and because we were doing this for a year, I was doing this project for a year, I needed some driving forces beyond the capstone, beyond getting a diploma. Of course, that was the main force, but I needed more than that. So I saw this project as an opportunity for both the founder and I to learn together. to provide tools and information to the founder, and to support the organization in my own way. So one way that people support the organization, you typically think of as donating money, but in other things like volunteering. So this was my way of volunteering and donating my time. Um, yeah. Some limitations and of course positionality. I mean, in our master's program, we learned that everyone has positionality, everyone has bias. And the point is to talk about it so that we all know where people are coming from. And so that's what I'm doing here, and also kind of sharing some limitations. So of course, this project was time bound. I had less than a year to complete everything. And as humanitarian practitioners and social scientists and people that work with humans and social dynamics know that there's never enough time. So yeah, time bound. And also I didn't live in Colombia, I live in the US. So there's things that I just didn't understand in the Colombian context. Of course, I mitigated it by spending time doing a lot of research through literature review. I have lived in Latin America, I have worked in Latin America. My first language is Spanish, but still, it's not like I will know perfectly what is the Colombian context. And that's why I worked alongside with the founder. Because the founder and I were friends, the founder felt comfortable pushing back if needed in our discussions, in all of our discussions. And she contributed also in the discussions, in the paper. She contributed in the way that she um, gave me feedback. She wasn't writing my paper, but she was giving me feedback and telling me this has happened. I remember one time we went through the literature review together, and there was a legislation that had just passed that I had not known that had just passed. And so she told me, this just passed, so you need to change your literature review. So things like that. Of course, my positionality, I have a personal interest in the success of the organization. I have a relationship with the founder. I'm interested in women and girls' rights. I'm interested in Latin America. So my project, of course, I want it to be helpful for the organization. Like I said, I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I lived and worked in various Latin American countries. All right, so with all of that said, let's keep going. This is kind of now where we start to get into the meat of everything. So menstrual health and hygiene management, I'm going to introduce a little bit of that. So this is a global issue that impacts girls and women worldwide. I mean, that is kind of known, but there's literature that backs it up. Of the girls and women in low and middle income countries, 50% of them practice inadequate menstrual health and hygiene management. In inadequate menstrual health and hygiene management, let me get my notes here. So you see here, so inadequate menstrual health and hygiene management means that menstruators cannot manage their menstruation in a correct way because of social restrictions, lack of knowledge, and other things. And so maybe they're not using enough products in a day. Maybe they don't have water. Maybe they are not allowed to go to school because of social taboos, etc. So that's what we mean by inadequate practice. Um, And then in Colombia, so now focusing in Colombia, girls are getting their menarche at an earlier age. So menarche means the first time that a girl has menstruation, first time that they bleed. And by an earlier age, we mean survey of 25 to 29-year-olds, someone like me. They surveyed them and they told that they said that they started their menarche at 13.2 years old. That was the average age. And then they surveyed 13 to 14-year-olds, so younger girls. And they said that they started their menarche at 11.9. So about a year and a few months earlier. So they're getting their menarche earlier. And when a girl gets their menarche, it opens the door for a range of things to happen. So childhood and adolescence pregnancy can happen, gender violence can happen, child marriage and early unions, and school dropouts. And so there's a need for expanded comprehensive menstrual education that can help prevent childhood adolescence, that can help prevent these things. And so you see that at that bottom paragraph. So that's kind of painting a picture of menstrual health and hygiene management. Of course, there's a lot more that one can say. And I guess I should state that I am not a full expert. Of course, I have a lot of information that I read. I spent a lot of time, but I think that there's always opportunity to learn more. And so, yeah. So now I'm gonna kind of explain a little bit of Mel. I will use Mel for the rest of this presentation, but like I said, some people use meal, some people use M&E. And so in a nutshell, it's important to have MEL. An organization should have some type of monitoring, evaluation, and learning practice because better comprehensive evaluations of any program, but specifically menstrual health education programs, will equal clear documentation of the effects of these programs, of this education, of these workshops on women and girls. And with this clear information, there could be it could inform better programming and more effective interventions. So it's I think it's very clear why MEL is important. And so how does this all relate to the organization that I focused on? Well, let me introduce it to you a little bit. Like I said, we're using a pseudonym, Tenara, and this is a nonprofit organization in Colombia. The original program started in an island, which is on the outside of the country. I can't think of the right, I guess it's northwest, close to Venezuela, I believe. But anyways, in the island, there is very low resources. And so the founder founded the organization first in the island. And then expanded. She expanded to Bogota and other small cities and towns inland. So the founder is a Colombian public health expert with international experience, about 10 years of experience doing this type of work. And Tenara provides comprehensive menstrual education workshops to girls, typically ages 9 to 15, sometimes younger, sometimes older. And the participants gain knowledge on menstruation, on life skills such as self-confidence, negotiation, positive inner voice, and self-advocacy. And so that leads me to my question. What is the current male capacity of Tenara and what opportunities exist for improvement? That was my question. I think I needed just one question to focus on. If I started thinking about a lot of questions, it's overwhelming, I think, to have a lot of questions in front of you, so I chose just one. So for Tenara, when I applied MEL, I started to think of it like this. So a better understanding of Tenara's MEL capacity and an action plan to address gaps will then strengthen its MEL and program capacity, which will then may increase the organization's impact and could better position itself. Tenara could better position itself to identify and leverage new funding opportunities. So this was my logic. This is kind of what I was working with. Yeah, so I will then continue. Let me look at my notes and see if there is something. No. So some literature, there's so much more literature, and I'm happy to share my whole document with anyone that would like to read it. But just some literature to kind of ground people, ground us. Menstrual health and hygiene management globally and in the Colombian context. So one of the points here from UNICEF from 2018 says that 35% of girls in Colombia, when surveyed, didn't know anything about menstruation until their menarche. So think about that's more than 1/3 of girls. You know, you have 3 girls, a friend group, and one of them will not know what's going on until they're bleeding. No one has talked to them about it. Nobody has said anything. They think life is great, and then they start bleeding. So that is, I'm sure, shocking, and I'm sure some of us as women and as menstruators can relate to that. And then when surveyed, almost half of the girls said they don't know where this blood comes from. So first, you don't know that it's going to happen, and when it's happening, you don't know why it's happening, where it's coming from. And so that's a pretty strong statistic. You know, half of the population of girls in this country, you know, and not to point out Colombia as this one country. These are numbers that you can see in many countries. So yeah. And so then I wanted to look at the policy environment for menstrual health and hygiene management in Colombia. There's a lot that has been done in Colombia. One interesting and exciting law that has been signed recently in 2025 was a menstrual license law. And this gave girls and women who go to school and work a day off every month for their menstruation. So it's acknowledging menstruation in law. And so there's still kind of a lot of guessing, or a lot that we will have to see on how this will be applied, who qualifies, how do they, you know, the logistics of this law. But it's important that this has been, you know, made into a law, that government is talking about menstruation, and it's becoming less taboo. So then we go into monitoring, evaluation, learning, and menstrual health and hygiene management. So just from a lot of information, I pulled this one piece of information: better and more consistent data is needed to inform evidence-based programming. And that was kind of what I talked about earlier when I was introducing Mel. And then I also wanted to look at feminist theory and empowerment, because the word empowerment is very commonly used, because in a lot of youth development workshops, in a lot of development workshops, even, you know, adult workshops. And I wanted to talk, you know, look into it and also look at feminist theory because, you know, it's kind of, it's related. And so I pulled something from Kabir from 1999, where she says the process by which so empowerment is the process by which those who have been denied the ability to make strategic life choices acquire such ability. Okay, so now with all of kind of this background information, this is my methodology. So I wanted to assess the capacity of the organization. I wasn't going to monitoring and evaluate the workshops in the organization because we needed to first see what was their male capacity. So I did a desk review first, which I wanted to kind of get all the documents, all the information I could, to try to understand what male activities Tenara is implementing. Then I did the male capacity assessment. So then I go to Colombia. I discuss and identified with the founder the areas of growth for male capacity. And then I did a theory of change, narrative, and visual activity with the founder, where we identified key elements in the theory of change and created a theory of change, narrative, and visual. Then we did a workshop. I observed a workshop, a Tenara workshop, and I was specifically looking for male activities that the founder does during, before, after the workshop. I apologize. I think I need to make this bigger. There we go. So then workshop observation. Oh, yeah, workshop observation. So the next steps, I came back to the US. I took all my notes. I refined, summarized those observations, identified key points. This is where a lot of I would do a lot of thinking, and then I would talk to the founder and kind of get her feedback on, kind of her thoughts after our workshop, and kind of try to put everything together, synthesize everything. So the first thing I did, again, from this chart, now I'm going to go in more detail of what I did. So here's the male assessment tool. This comes from Lockie and Kolnar, and they developed a grantee male assessment tool for organizations that get funding. And so I adapted this tool to use for Tenara. And so on the right, you can see the digital version, and on the left, you can see the printed version with my notes on it. So something that I wanted to kind of point out through this process, the founder expressed feelings of overwhelm, but she also explained that this assessment helped clarify the gaps in activities or personnel needed to create a male system. So this was kind of a way to kind of help ground the founder and I in what is currently being done regarding Mel and what needs to be done for Tenara. So then I used the USA Theory of Change development workbook tool, which it's a lot, but I will I'll just call it a workbook tool, the workbook tool. And so this was developed by USAID in Vietnam. And the tool, the document is like 20 pages long, and it's meant to help practitioners or program managers help them kind of understand what the theory of change is for the project, refine that better, and then create a visual. So this tool help us kind of think about the contextual analysis or the context, sorry, made us think about the actors, made us think about, it asked questions about what are the opportunities that we have for change and what are things where the door is just totally closed and there's no opportunity for change. Where is the momentum? Where is there no momentum? Who are the stakeholders? A lot. We spend hours, like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours talking about this over the course of 2 days because it was just a lot to kind of talk about, dig through, and make sure that we were trying to get a really good picture of the context, the issue, which here is menstrual education. That was the topic that we were thinking through in Colombia. And again, you can see the digital version and then the noted version. So a really important quote that I wanted to kind of highlight here from the founder, she said, in Colombia, a lack of education and access to menstrual information culturally perpetuates the prevalence of taboos and stigmas and has ripple effects in the lives of menstruators. Addressing this challenge is important as menstrual education is the foundation for family planning, decision-making, and sexual and reproductive health. So this is where the founder is thinking from. Of course, it's not the only thought in her mind, but it's an important thought because the founder sees her work, Tenara's work, menstrual education as the foundation for a lot of other very important things for women. And if we want to talk about women's rights, human rights, we talk about family planning, decision making, and decision making can also look like empowerment. It could also look like agency. Um, and then sexual and reproductive health, that can look like the right to abortion, the right to have contraception and information about that. So, it goes into a lot of things, but menstrual health is the starting point, and it's really important for the organization. So, again, with the use of the USAID workbook tool, we revised the goal and the theory of change that Tenara was working with. We created if-then statements. So this is two lines of the if-then statements. It's a whole long statement, but I just wanted to kind of explain here. If girls are able to actively participate in these workshops, then they will increase their knowledge on menstruation and life skills. So I think it's important to kind of point out here because the goal for me with this project was to help work with the founder on what a theory of change could look like, how to revise it so that then if anyone listening to this that is a male practitioner, an M&E practitioner, they know how important theory of change, a good, clear theory of change is, because that then helps you create your program strategy, create your framework, your log frame, your goals, helps you think about assumptions. So it's really important to have a theory of change. So then here I created visuals. So this was our brainstorming session. On paper, we were just kind of writing out like, okay, what do we think? How do we think this visual could look like? And then later I came back to my desk as I was synthesizing everything and created a type of logic model, a visual. And so, yeah, this is kind of a little bit of that. So then the third day I did a workshop observation. So I literally was with the founder. She conducted a menstrual health education workshop with about 12 girls, and I was observing. And I created this tool actually. I didn't get this from anywhere. I created it. And it was very basic or general questions to kind of help me not forget things. And you can see here my writing of my notes. And from those observations, I found some male challenges and also male opportunities. Oh, okay. So, yeah, some male challenges. Well, the participants in the workshop, some of them didn't know how to read and write. And these were girls that were maybe in the second or third grade. And so when the founder is working with the girls and has developed a workbook, if the girls cannot read or write, they cannot use that workbook. They cannot write on that workbook. And then the founder cannot take these workbooks and monitor if the girls are learning anything. If there's nothing written on the workbook, that might mean that the girls didn't capture any information or that they didn't know how to write, but they did capture the information. So it becomes this discrepancy. Attendance variations. So this makes it hard to scaffold. So if girls attended one workshop and then were absent for the next one and then attended the other workshop, so then it's hard to maybe scaffold. And maybe it's not such a big deal, or it could be a big deal. So that's another kind of challenge that we saw. Age variation, kind of the same thing with attendance. Some girls that are younger might not capture these concepts and might be bored and I saw that they were maybe bored and distracting the other participants. So then this becomes a topic of conversation of where is the cutoff age? What do you do when young girls want to participate? How do you manage and mitigate that? So then there was, of course, opportunities from these challenges. So verbal comprehension checks tracked in a notebook by the facilitator. So instead of using the workbook to check and monitoring if the girls are capturing the information, the facilitator can check verbally and then make a note. Maybe doing art-based activities to evaluate workshops. You can ask the participants to create some type of art to figure out if they are understanding the concepts. You can get feedback from volunteers and facilitators that are in the workshop with either the founder or the facilitator. You can get them to write short reflections in a team in a a team notebook after each workshop. The reflections, this notebook can then be used monthly to look over and figure out what needs to be changed. So this becomes a learning activity, a monthly kind of learning activity. So other things, using the workshop materials as meld tools. So again, using maybe if the girls are writing on some type of workbook or on paper, using that as a monitoring or evaluation or learning tool. Another opportunity for the founder and volunteers or staff to learn about meld practices that are effective with children, kind of going back to the art-based activities. So other key insights from this whole experience that I found that I didn't anticipate, really. I didn't realize, yeah, they just were, I didn't anticipate them. We talked about a program strategy. So the founder and I kind of realized that there was no strategy. And without a strategy, you cannot then have timeline of when you want things to be achieved. So maybe we talked about having a year-long strategy where every quarter you want to achieve something. And you can monitor for that. You can understand or check if the goal for that quarter has been reached. So you can see here my brainstorming with the founder of a strategy. Then we talked about safe spaces. So safe spaces, they are just part of the organization of the workshop. You have a number of girls that feel safe enough to attend the workshop, learn about these concepts, and talk about them. In that observation that I attended of the workshop, I did hear girls talk about things unrelated to menstruation, like their feelings, how they were feeling, how their home life was. So it was really important to note that this is happening, because then you can talk about this organization as providing safe spaces and how often and how long and what are they talking about. So it's important to monitor this. Another important thing that we talked about that came out of this project, this research, was stakeholders, specifically family members, how important they are, how they need to be part of the conversation as much as possible, part of the monitoring and evaluation, getting their feedback. And they're important because family members will encourage or keep the girls from attending the workshop, from applying these concepts, from talking about these concepts. You know, they are, of course, the supporters, hopefully the main supporters of the girls. So it's important, I guess. Okay, so from my continuing project, I developed a log frame, which you can see here. It's a lot of words. No need to read all of it unless you want to pause this video and I need to move out of the frame. But just so you kind of understand what a log frame is, I have here underlined goal, outcome, outputs, and activities. And actually, you read it from the bottom up. So an activity here is develop and run a series of workshops in Bogota. The output of that is the girls actively participate in the workshop. There's also other outputs. The outcome of that is that girls increase their knowledge and skills in these things. And the overall goal is improve quality of life. And it goes on. And then you also want to look at the project summary, the indicators or targets, the means of verification, and the assumptions. And so this log frame helps kind of guide the whole project. which is a great way to have. It's good to have this written down because, in a team of project managers or people that are trying to monitor and evaluate the project, they can kind of look at this and make sure that they are on track, make sure they're not missing anything. It's a great way to kind of have a plan, if just to kind of put it simply. So, kind of to remind everyone of the research question, what is the current male capacity of Tenara and what opportunities exist for improvement? Well, keep going back. So from all of this, I came up with some recommendations for the founder, for the organization. Some of them I kind of already chatted about. For example, further learn about male practices that could benefit the organization, such as art-based activities for participants, to get participants' feedback, and figure out what's the most significant change with the most significant change methodology. Kind of in a summary, MSC here, is where you find the most significant change. So maybe you have a lot of things that happened because of this workshop, but you try and maybe pinpoint one that was significant, and that will help you to then figure out if your goals are being achieved. So yeah, that's something that the founder can do in the staff. Another thing that I recommended is to research effective strategies to further and foster safe spaces. So like I said, safe spaces, this is happening, they are safe spaces. So how can you encourage it and monitor it and make it even better, enhance the safe space environment. Create a program strategy, kind of like what I chatted about earlier, with timelines for both Bogota project and Island project and the participants. Think about ways that family members and other stakeholders can be included in MELC activities. Continue to adapt the suggested logical framework, theory of change narrative, and visual that I had provided. Some conclusions. So this. Tenara's theory of change shares concepts with the literature. So it was really exciting to see that Tenara's already working in a framework that aligns with the literature. So, for example, Chang et al. Talk about power within, and Glessner and all talk about empowerment as a mix of resources, agency, and achievements. And so we have mentioned this in Tenara does this. So the workshops aim to increase self-advocacy with the girls, empowerment, all of these skills that you can see in the log frame. Yeah, and so again, Glenister and all talk about empowerment by gaining access to knowledge, attitudes, and preferences. And this enhances the ability to exercise choice, which increases participation, voice negotiation, and decision-making skills. So this is all in the literature, and Tenara is doing this in one way or another. So that's really, really exciting to know, to conduct this assessment and then tell Tenara, look, you're on the right path. So also, of course, like I mentioned, there are recommendations. I recommend that the founder and staff spend time thinking about what it could look like to become a contributor or consultant for other NGOs and CBOs in their field. And I also recommend that they participate in current discourse on male and menstrual health and hygiene management projects by contributing to blog posts, participating in conferences, connecting with a network of evaluators in the region. So I think there's more to be said, but for the sake of time, I will give you my personal takeaways. So spending time with Tenara and the founder really grounded my capstone project in a real way. I went and did the research. It wasn't just in a theory, but it really was grounded in a real life project with, real life people. Um, this added, of course, to my male skills into my toolbox. I gained a lot of technical knowledge on mail and also a lot of human context. So I'll talk about that in a second, but I also got a lot of understanding on the importance of all the preliminary work that must be done before you can do a good program evaluation and good program monitoring of. So there's different types of evaluations. There's kind of a midline evaluation, a final one, maybe an evaluation that's done kind of at the very beginning, maybe when a few months have passed, when a program has started. So there's a lot of preliminary work that must be done. Male to me must have cultural awareness and human connection. So this is kind of where male gets fuzzy because it's a lot of data, it's a lot of, reports and numbers and surveys, but it still must have, in my opinion, cultural awareness and human connection. And I think it's important to acknowledge that male can be messy and time consuming. I think this is well understood, but I think to me, it was clear. It was clear that it's messy and time consuming. So with the use of proxies, male practitioners try to understand the human experience and the interactions, which is difficult to bottle up. I mean, how do you bottle up that girls feel safe in a space to talk about the violence that they might be seeing in their homes, the experience that they might have had gone through fleeing from a dangerous situation? How do you bottle this up? How do you talk about an organization is spending X, Y, and Z number of hours doing safe space conversations? What does that mean? How do you market that in a way? How do you put that on a flyer? How do you tell founders? So that's why I say it's messy. Yeah. So, other personal takeaways, founder and I had added a layer to our friendship and our shared interest in women and girls' rights. And from this experience, I felt that I could maybe pursue this type of work with other organizations, consulting with them and providing some type of male assessment. I think that would be really interesting. I think it would be a great experience, something that I could really use my skills and support organizations and share my knowledge with organizations. So these are the references. I'm happy to share the full document with anyone interested. But yeah, thank you so much for listening and for taking the time. And yeah.